Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps. I'm glad to have you on our YouTube channel today, May 21st, 2025. Um, the title for the topic I want to talk about first is how to identify a debt management scam or a debt relief scam. Um, when it comes to seniors, it's pretty easy. With few exceptions, they're all scammers. Okay, so I'm going to start out. I'm going to show you I did this article or I did a letter for a guy get out of debt guy, Steve Rhodes, a few years ago. I'm going to show this to you. Okay, if I can do it right. Here we go. There we go. So I think this is kind of interesting myself anyway. He put this on his website, and it talks about, just an example is one of them is called National Debt Relief. We still hear a lot about that. Okay, we get a lot of clients that call us from National Debt Relief. They've been with National Debt Relief and they find our website and realize they didn't need this help. And so they did this article back in 2020, How to Spot a Debt Relief Scam. And this is the article. It's kind of interesting. And it they identify the criteria to examine a scam. And first thing is that they target those that are desperate. Those that are desperate. Okay, and a lot of seniors that contacted are desperate. They owe a lot of debt. Second thing they do is the scam. They say that they manipulate people to do something that's not in their best interest. Okay, that's true. They manipulate people to do something not in their best interest. And it says that a reputable debt management company, debt relief company, will learn everything it can about your unique situation. Okay, and then it says they use a cookie cutter approach. Okay, so what are those? They attack those that are desperate. They don't act in a person's best interest. They use a cookie cutter approach, and they're supposedly try to find out everything that's in about your unique situation. Okay. Now, this is the article they wrote, National Debt Relief, on how to spot a scam. Okay. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to show you an article. There was an article they published the next month. Okay. But I'm not going to look at that one. I'm going to look at one that got published by National Debt Relief last month on April 9th. Okay? And we'll see if National Debt Relief, if they avoid these things, if they take a cookie cutter approach, if they don't tell you things in their financial interest, and those other criteria. So let's see what they say. So here's the article. This is so easy to do. Okay, the reality of debt for older adults and what you can do about it. Look at the date, April 9th, 2025. They talk about you're not the only one facing this. And it says a new survey commissioned by National Debt Relief and talks about the problems with seniors in debt. So that makes them look official because they commissioned a study. What debt looks like: credit card debt, mortgage debt, medical debt, auto loan debt. And they talk about why it's so hard to get ahead, which is all true. The impact of retirement and savings. And it goes on to say that, they talked about their problems. Now, and then it goes on here, you're not powerless. What you can do. Number one, they say, assess your debt situation honestly. And here's their solutions. Pick a debt relief strategy. The snowball method. They said, and they talk about this, whatever that, make a minimum payment, whatever, and then put extra money toward your smallest debt until it's fully paid, and then move on from there. The avalanche method, which is to make the minimum payment, apply all extra funds to the debt with the highest interest rate. And then explore debt relief options, debt consolidation, debt settlement, and that's what they do. Okay, credit counseling, and then they talk about bankruptcy. Final thoughts. Okay. So that's what this article says. Can we, from this article they wrote last month, can we identify national debt relief as being a scam or not? Because they already told us how to do that back in 2018. They wrote this article, how to identify a debt relief scam. Okay. So here's the criteria. Cookie cutter approach. Do they anywhere in this article they wrote last month, do they ever tell a senior that your income is protected, no one can take it? No. They treat a senior the same way as a regular person has a regular job. Okay, they use a cookie cutter approach. They don't inform seniors completely of their rights. Let me just try to get the original article. Where to go? They act in their own financial interests. If they were to tell you that your income was protected, you would realize you wouldn't need to pay them, you wouldn't enroll with them, they wouldn't make money off you. Okay, so they don't act in your best interest. Instead, they steer you towards their debt management. They don't mention the fact Social Security is protected. Okay, so here we go. Instead, they tell you get help from family members, refinance a home mortgage, take out a home equity line of credit, apply for a reverse mortgage, use that money to pay your debt, sell assets, then use a debt relief company. In other words, they never tell seniors the truth. So by their own criteria, they identify themselves as a scam. So if you're involved with debt management or debt relief, the question I ask people, when you enroll with them, did they tell you, by the way, all your income is protected, you don't need to pay the debt? Okay, Social Security is protected. You can be protected from creditor harassment by a cease and desist letter. If they didn't tell you that, they're not giving you complete information. Okay, they're acting in their own financial interest. Now, National Debt Relief isn't the only company that does this. There's scores of these companies. It's actually a pretty easy business to get into. Some states regulate them, a lot of states don't. They can charge a high fee. As long as they withhold information from you and you're desperate, you're going to sign up with them thinking they're going to help you, and then you're with them for 3 or 4 months or 6 months and you finally realize they can't help you. And that's what they do. They just take advantage of seniors, which is kind of sad. Okay? So I'm glad to have you here today. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature. I'll address them. If you have any questions beyond today, you can always call us, 855-435-7787. helps us or helps us. We have paralegals that'll talk to you. What we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons who get protected income like Social Security, pensions, disability, VA benefits, IRAs, 401ks. Their income is safe. And if they owe debt and creditors are bothering them, and when they enroll in helps, we don't turn anyone away that qualifies for our service. When they enroll in helps, we're going to send a cease and desist letter out to your debt collectors, the people you owe money to, the creditors, to tell them that we represent you to get this communication, and they're going to have to leave you alone so you don't have to deal with the creditors anymore. Okay? So that's what we do. And we want to be able to help people. We want people to know about what we do. As far as I know, we're the only law firm in the nation that does this. We help people in all 50 states. Your money is yours. It's available for your food, for your medicine, for your utilities, for your rent, gifts for the grandkids. Our clients are generally modest or lower income and poor. They don't have any extra money. If they had extra money, they'd be happy to pay their debt. They simply can't afford to. So if you're in that category, I want you to listen to what we talk about today and look at our other videos. And if you want help, give us a call. We'll go over it. And I promise you'll be glad you did. Okay, so I'm going to address the questions here as they come up. Kat says, Capital One took over Discover. You sent a letter to Discover, and I still have a Capital One card I'm using. Will this takeover affect that card? Probably. As they merge their information together, Capital One will learn that you didn't pay the Discover card, and they may choose to shut down the Capital One card. Okay? That's normally what happens. That's why when people call, we'll ask them, is there a credit card you'd like to keep? And they'll say yes, and they'll say you can keep that card as long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card you're not going to pay. So now that Capital One card will be backed by, you'll have another card, Discover, backed by the same bank, so they very well may coordinate their data, so they'll cut off the Capital One card. They might not in this instance, I don't know. You can keep using it until you find out. If they cut it off, then you stop using it, turn it into helps, send a letter, and that's it. They'll leave you alone. Attended a 7:20 Zoom call. Yeah, I got to talk to Phil. Okay. Could you speak on credit card debt and Social Security, disability, and inheritance trust? Sure. Okay. Social Security, any form of Social Security is protected from debt collectors. You can't take it. Okay. If it's deposited in your bank account, twice that amount is protected in your bank account. In the event someone were to sue you, find out where your bank, and they tried to garnish your bank account, twice the amount of what you get in Social Security is protected. Now, what about an inheritance trust? One of the first things you'll learn in law school is that if there's a trust, trust has to have what's called a spendthrift clause. And that's a clause that under the law says that the money in the trust is protected from creditors, can't be taken. And so there's always what's called a spendthrift clause in a trust, which means your trust is going to be protected from collectors. Now, the only way they could get at that is if you withdrew the money out and put it into your account. Then they could get at it then. However, if they put it into the account in which Social Security goes, remember that twice the amount of your Social Security, that amount is protected, regardless if there's other funds in there. So if you got, $2,000 in Social Security, $4,000 is protected in your bank account. Now let's say you've got $2,000 from Social Security and $1,000 from the VA. That's VA is federal income that's protected twice the amount. 2,000 plus 1,000 is 3,000 times 2 means 6,000 in the bank account is protected automatically. Okay? Okay. Sandra's asking me, she says, I'm still confused. If you're served or summons to go to court, you still have to go, correct, for a credit card debt? No, Sandra, you don't need to go to court. The only reason you would go to court is if you want to contest the lawsuit. If you don't owe the money, you can fight it, but most of our clients owe the money, and you don't need to go to court. Now, sometimes when you read the summons, it talks about, they may have a court date and talks about what you need to do, but buried in the language is something that says, well, if you don't do anything, we're just simply going to get a judgment. Okay, so like I've explained, you're judgment proof. If your only income is Social Security and a pension, no one can get at that money. Even if someone gets a judgment against you, they can't collect that money from you. They can't take that money from you. So to be really clear, Sandra, if you owe a debt on a credit card and you get sued, you do not have to go to court. When it helps clients get sued, we ask you to get a copy. We need the first 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit. We need the case number and the attorney's name and address. And then we send a letter to the attorney letting them know that your income is protected. You're not going to go to court. We understand they're going to get a judgment. Mind them not to touch your bank account. They can't anyway for the reasons I explained. It's protected automatically by your bank. Okay? I'll talk about that right now a little bit. If you ask your bank manager this, he probably doesn't know the answer, or he'll give you a wrong answer, but there's a department in the bank that deals with garnishments that automatically knows how to protect the balance in your bank account if Social Security goes in there. There's a code on the deposit that they can identify as being from a federal source, and they times the amount you get each month times 2 and protect that. And I've been saying for quite a while that probably 999 out of 1,000 attorneys don't understand that rule. It's been in effect since 2012, but a lot of attorneys don't practice in the area and they don't have any idea about it. So no, your income's going to be protected. You're going to be fine. So IKR asks, a friend wants to financially support me, but we're concerned about the credit card companies coming after that support. Should I have monies like that in someone else's name? Well, you don't have to worry about it at all unless you're sued and they know where you bank. So if you haven't been sued, it doesn't matter. But let's say you get Social Security. Let's say you get $1,000 a month in Social Security. Remember, twice that amount is protected, $2,000. So as long as you keep the balance in there and you get money from this friend who's helping support you, if you keep the balance less than $2,000, twice the amount of Social Security, it doesn't matter if there's other funds in that account. It's just not the Social Security that's protected. It's all funds are protected as long as it's less than twice the amount of what you get in Social Security. Does that answer the question? I hope so. If not, I'll follow up and clarify it. Okay. So Dottie asks, what form offset the 1099-C the IRS will need from me when filing tax? I understand the bank writes off the debt and sends me a 1099-C as income. Okay, we talk about this a lot, okay, and I'll explain it. Okay, a 1099-C is if you owe debt more than, I think it's $600 or $650, then a creditor is technically required to send the IRS form a 1099-C, which it essentially says, okay, you didn't pay a debt, therefore this money should be attributed to you as income upon which you pay taxes. And sometimes seniors are scared of this. And I'm going to explain why you don't need to be scared. Okay, first off, if your only income is Social Security and maybe a little bit of extra money, you're probably not even required to file. You're not required to file taxes. You don't need to worry about a 1099-C. The IRS isn't going to follow up on. They're not going to do anything. But if you were required to file taxes and you got a 1099-C, if your income is of modest or lower amount, you can probably get on what's called currently not collectible with this IRS and not have to pay the tax if there is any. Or if you file a tax return and you're what's called insolvent, then there's no tax. And what does that mean? It means essentially if your debt exceeds your asset. So if you're renting where you live and got an old car and you got $50,000 in debt, you're definitely insolvent, which means your debt, $50,000 exceeds whatever assets you have. And there's a form called a 984, and you click off I think it's 1B, the box at the beginning, the second box. It says, I'm insolvent, therefore there's no tax. And that's only if you're going to file taxes. Now, if you're not required to file taxes, do you need to file taxes and do that? I tell people, generally no, the IRS hasn't been doing anything. IRS I'm sure has artificial intelligence. They can tell that the only income you're getting is Social Security, and they don't follow up on that, okay? Now, I'm not telling people not to file taxes. If you're required to file taxes, you need to do that. But you shouldn't have any problem with the 1099-C. And once again, if you ever did have a debt and your income is like $3,500 or less and you're a couple, $2,500 less if you're single person, that range, and even a little bit more, you can qualify for what's called currently not collectible status and not have to worry about the taxes. So, Dottie, it shouldn't be an issue for you. You can always call and talk to us. I did a video, it's been 2 or 3 years ago, with my former partner Rex Staines on YouTube Live, and you can look on February 9th, and we talk in detail about it. And we also have, you call us on the phone, we've got emails that talk about 1099-Cs and why they're not going to be an issue for you. Okay? So Ms. H asked, the letter I got from the creditor said they will charge off the debt and I may be liable for later fees and still owe on the debt. What exactly does that mean, a charge off? Well, that's just, an original creditor, the way they do their taxes, at some point if they can't collect the debt, they do what's called a charge off. And that helps them with their taxes, okay? That doesn't mean you don't owe the debt. You still technically owe the debt, and they can still try to collect it or turn it over to someone to collect. Okay, it can help you on your credit reporting, on your credit rating, for different reasons, but no, you don't need to worry about it. Okay, the charge off is just an internal thing. You still technically owe the debt. It doesn't mean that they're not going to try to collect from you. Okay. So I talked to a guy this morning from New Jersey, 78 years older, 78 years old. He got about $1,400 in Social Security and $300 from a pension, and he had a modular home, like a mobile home, or that was in a park. He was renting the space. The home was free and clear, so he paid space rent, and he had an older car. $10,000 in credit card debt. He'd signed up with debt management, was paying him $200 a month, and realized he couldn't pay it anymore, and he had stopped paying him. And of course, I asked him, did they tell you when you enrolled that all your income was protected? He said, no, Eric, they didn't tell me that. They never tell anyone that, like I explained at the beginning. And he happened to see our YouTube video, checked us out, and he called. I answered his questions, and he enrolled this morning, and we're going to send a letter out to his collectors. He doesn't have to pay the $10,000 he owes in debt. They're not going to take his old car. They're not going to take his home. He doesn't need to worry. Now, I'd say the same thing to you. If you're in a position and you're a senior and you owe debt, you can't pay it anymore, you're going to be fine. You don't need to file bankruptcy. Very few seniors need to file bankruptcy. Before I started HELPS, I probably filed between 30 and 40,000 bankruptcies at least. And I started HELPS because seniors didn't need to file bankruptcy, but if they didn't pay their debt, creditors would harass them. So bankruptcy was started so that we can represent seniors under what's called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can't call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone. So when people find out about HELPS, they enroll with our program. They give us the collectors to whom they owe money. We send out what's called a cease and desist letter, and the collectors have to leave you alone. Peace comes back to your life. You don't have to worry about the phone ringing off the hook with creditors trying to harass you, shake you down. So iCare asks, at what point in the unpaid debt process should I sign up with you? Well, like I've said, and we always have new people listen to this channel. So sometimes I repeat things, and people that listen to us regularly, they understand that. But a lot of them tell me they don't mind hearing it again. So I don't want to have anyone hesitate to ask me any question. I want you to do that. So if we have 5 people enroll with HELPS, okay, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued. They're scared. Maybe 3 or 4 out of 5 are being harassed by creditors in different ways. And then maybe 1 out of 5 is completely current on everything. But they finally realize they can't pay the debt anymore. It doesn't matter where you are. You can enroll with HELPS at any one of those points. Okay? We have a lot of clients that enroll with us that are completely current on everything. You don't have to sit back and wait to get collection calls before you decide to enroll with HELPS. I don't want you to do that. And you don't need to talk to them. If they, if you're going to call us and enroll in helps, you don't need to answer the phone. You don't need to engage in conversation with them. They're just going to manipulate you. They're going to try to fiddle with your head, make you feel bad, or just don't. You don't need to talk to them. Okay. If you need our help, call us. Give us their name, address, and account number. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. The beauty about helps is you can enroll almost immediately. We enroll people over the phone. When they call, we're going to ask you a series of questions, and then we're going to click a button, and you're going to get enrolled. We'll keep you on the phone. You're going to get an email that says "Welcome to Helps," and you're going to say, "Oh, I got that email." And I said, "Great." That email explains, our contact information, our address, our phone number, email address is how to get us the collectors. All we need is the name, address, and account number. Within 24 to 48 hours, we send out a cease and desist letter to the collectors. They're going to get that. They're going to leave you alone. In the interim, if they happen to call you, you give them our name and number, tell them not to call you anymore, and hang up the phone. And then they're going to call us, and then you're going to be on our system as being our client. So you can enroll immediately in helps. So April asks, I'm a client. I have surrendered a car after sales and they send a bill for an amount owed. Do I send helps that document, and how does helps handle that? So yeah, if you have a car that you can't afford and you let it go back, or an RV or anything like that, at some point they're going to sell it. Between the time that you let it go back and the time it's sold, they're probably not going to bother you because they don't know how much you owe. But once they sell it, you're going to get an amount that you owe, and it's called a deficiency notice. And they're going to ask that you pay that. And that's you get us that deficiency notice, or that amount, name and address, account number, and then we're going to send a letter to the creditor or the collector at that point, tell them you can't afford to pay it. Okay? So here's another guy, talks about repossession from Texas. He had a repossession a couple months ago. The car was financed through Capital One Auto. I just received a letter deficiency stating that I owe $22,500. I do not have the money to pay it. I cannot afford payments. I'm going to send your firm a copy of this letter now as a client. Well, apparently this guy's a client of your firm. Understand that I give you and your firm full authority and permission to contact Capital One. Well, you give that to us when we enroll you. He says, I guess that Capital One will pursue litigation on this matter and will definitely need your counseling and help dealing with Capital One Auto when they do that. They may never sue you. They could. So when we get that, when we send them a letter, cease and desist letter, we tell them that your income is Social Security and pension is protected. You can't afford to pay it. Now, if anyone with a brain reads that letter, they're going to realize that it's going to be a waste of their time to sue you. And some creditors actually do read that letter and they choose not to sue. I don't tell anyone anymore what percentage would sue, but I'm pretty safe in saying that fewer sue than do. Okay, probably far fewer. So no, you don't. But even if you are sued, they can't collect from you. You're going to give us the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney saying that your income's protected. You're not going to have to go to court. You're going to be fine. And the whole purpose of helps, at any point, if you're worried or scared or you have a question, you pick up the phone and you call. That's the magic about helps. When you enroll in helps, you're a client ongoing. It's not one time. It's literally forever. So you can call us every day if you need to. Okay. We don't want you to worry. Okay. And I've had people have called us every day. They might call every day. Not too many, but I remember years ago, a couple from Oklahoma, the wife was just really worried. And I'm sure she called almost every day for about 2 months in a row. Finally, it got through and they stopped calling. And that's what I tell people. You'll finally realize that you're going to be okay. They can't do anything to you. But I would rather have you call than you to sit home and be stressed. And I don't like to hear people tell me, I didn't want to bother you, but I've been really worried. No, you call us if you're worried. Okay? That's the magic about helps when you don't get charged every time you call. You know, our representation is ongoing. We don't represent people in court. We give legal information. But I can certainly tell you the law that says that your income is protected and they can't do anything to you. There's nothing wrong with us telling you that. Okay, there's no dumb question, but let's see. I need to fix my old fully paid off vehicle. Can I try to sign up with new card knowing I can't pay it back? Okay, what you're asking me is if you know that you're not gonna, you're gonna sign up with help and you have a credit card debt that's still good, are you gonna use the credit card? Can I still use the credit card if I don't intend to pay it? Um, well, that's between you and your conscience. I used to tell people when I was doing bankruptcies, I'd have a dad come in and they'd ask me essentially the same question. He knew he was going to file bankruptcy, and what I told him, I'd say the same thing. I said, it's up to you. You know, you're not going to be able to pay this, uh, and I'd say something. If you needed food for the kids or gas for the car to go to work, you know, I don't think anyone's going to hold it against you. I don't see our clients purposely running up a credit card a whole lot, knowing that they're not going to be able to pay it. But it's up to you. Okay? So it helps us for old debt, not new, fresh debt. Well, not necessarily, Sunset Cliff, because a lot of people call us and they find out about us today or yesterday, and then they've been using their credit cards ongoing, and the debt they ran up was just a few days ago. No, it doesn't matter if it's new or old, it can be included. Okay? A lot of people call us, I've used the example, that they're living off the credit cards. And it's like, and then they pay them every month. And it's like they're digging a hole of debt and they're throwing it out. And they finally get so deep down in the hole that they don't have any more room in the cards to borrow money on the cards to keep paying the debt. They don't have enough income to keep paying the debt, so the dirt starts caving in the hole. And finally they realize we can't do it anymore. So it doesn't matter where you are. So, if you got recent debt, it's not an issue. Thanks, Jimmy. He said he had $70,000 in debt. I joined Helps, call, stop, and peace gate back into my life. And I've never looked back. Good. That's right. That's what we want you to do. Okay, this person contacted us from Idaho. It says, I'm a senior on Social Security. I own a mobile home and on a rented space. If I'm sued, can they put a lien on the trailer? I'm in Idaho and the home is homesteaded. The exemption is higher than my equity. And I meet them back, and it says, very few states have laws that place a lien on a mobile home. Normally, if someone gets a judgment, it can become a lien on a home on land, but not a mobile home in a park. There's a few states where there's an exception. I can't remember what those are. I don't think Idaho is one of them. But even if it was, they're not going to take it. You don't need to worry about it. Okay? Well, this person contacts us from Florida. I'm on Social Security disability. I get about $1,100 a month. I've been paying $125 a month on 3 accounts with Midland Credit Management. And I'm being sued on the 4th account. I told them I can't afford to pay any more. He's got cancer He's got all kinds of problems. I have no money in the bank, and by the end of the month, there's no assets. He's got a car that's financed. He has to pay $250 to $100 a month on it. I'm worried. Kind of, can they take my Social Security? And when I can't afford to pay Midland, I can't afford bankruptcy and court fees. And what can I do? Do you have any advice with my financial problems? Well, sure. Uh, that describes a lot of people that contact helps. He's been paying credit cards. He's got one he hasn't been paying. They sued him. Um, he's sick. He's got serious medical issues. Medical issues. And he thinks he has to file bankruptcy, which he doesn't. His only income is Social Security. He gets $1,100 or $1,200 in Social Security. It's protected. Twice that amount in his bank account that he gets is protected. Even if he gets sued, he doesn't need to worry about it. If he doesn't want to deal with the creditors, he can enroll in helps. We're going to enroll him. The cost is going to be absolutely minimal. He's not going to have to pay any of this debt anymore. As far as the car is concerned, you know, you can keep making the car payment. No one's going to take it from you. If you can't afford it, you can let it go back. You probably hang on to it for 3 months before it goes back. But it's, you know, you're going to be fine. We'll go over this situation. So Joe says, helps put my mind to rest. I swear I called twice a week for a couple of months. Always took the time to answer my questions. I have been a client for years. Yeah, that's what we do. We try to talk to everyone. Okay? We don't, we, Helps was founded so that you would always have someone to call. That's the only way this works. If it was a one-time thing, it'd be worthless. It has to be ongoing. Okay? Is my pension double protected or just my federal benefits? Well, the rule is, okay, your pension's protected, period. Okay. The rule I'm talking about is how much is protected in your bank account. Okay? No one can go after your pension. Let me be clear. They can't take money out of your pension. But in 2012, there was a federal rule put into effect. I think the congressman got tired of hearing from seniors that were having their bank accounts garnished. And so this rule says that if a bank gets a garnishment on a bank account, they examine the account, and if you get something from a federal source, like Social Security, a VA pension, if you got federal retirement, Office of Personnel Management, Post Office, Railroad Worker, those are federal retirements, VA benefit, it's a federal benefit. Whatever that is, times 2 is automatically protected by your bank. If that added up to $1,500, then that's $3,000. Even if there's money in the account that came from another source. So if you had a pension and it wasn't a federal pension, it's protected. If you have it deposited in the account to which Social Security goes, then it's protected in that account automatically, twice the amount. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, then it's still protected, just not automatically. The excess could be held up. You'd have to file what's called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to get that release. We help people do that, and it's usually really fast. We don't want you to worry. Okay, you don't need to worry. So, there won't be any issue. Ellis. What if I had to work half of the last year and then I had to file taxes and my wife passed away in July, so now I need to pay those credit card taxes on discharge now? How do you can call and talk to us. I mean, if it's a small amount of taxes, you know, you can choose to pay them. You can pay the taxes over 5 or 6 years. You know, if you owed, $2,000, you could have a payment of $25 a month. I mean, there's really small, but if you can't afford it, you don't need to, and you can't afford to pay it. You can get on currently not collectible status. If you don't do anything, what's the IRS going to do? They may do nothing, and the tax amount owed may be small enough that their computer tells them not to do anything. They may send you notices. The worst they would ever do is they'd send you a notice saying they're going to tend to offset 15% of your Social Security. So if you got $2,000, that'd be $300. $1,000 would be $150. But they wouldn't do that automatically. They would say they would do that after 60 days. That would give you a chance to contact the IRS and either set up a payment or get on currently not collectible status where you don't have to pay them. Okay? You can always talk to us about that. Okay? We talk to seniors about that all day long. See, not only do we protect seniors from collector harassment, we do our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. We'll talk to you about other things. If you may have we may be telling you that you have a problem with a house payment and you may have a lot of equity. You may be saying, hey, you could look at a reverse mortgage, or maybe you've got a timeshare. We'd say, hey, you don't need to pay that anymore. Or maybe you got a car payment you can't afford. We'll talk about that. We'll give you solutions in other areas, and we'll maybe talk about, you need to sign up for Section 8 housing, get on the waiting list. You may need to consider adding a kid's name to the house so that when you pass away, the property goes to the kid. I mean, we do other things as well as we give information in a lot of areas. Not just only protecting you from the collectors harassing you. You can always call with your questions. Kathy says, I know I called every day when I first joined almost 2 years ago. I know. What I've learned is just watching these videos, even if you are repeating the same things, I'm glad you do it. I know that. A lot of our clients just like to hear the same thing, okay, which is fine. And, if you can press the like button or subscribe to our channel or tell people about helps, that helps. That gives the logarithm a chance so that this information spreads more easily. Okay. I know there's a lot of people that need this help. A lot more than that are contacting helps. I'll give you an example. So I do some videos with seniorliving.org. We did one a couple months ago. It went viral. It's almost 500,000 views. But for a 1 month, our phones were for like almost 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks. First week especially, our phones were ringing off the hook. We were getting calls because YouTube spread that video around to all these seniors that were typing anything at all, and people were looking at that video and they were calling us. And that's happened before. So it tells me that there's just a ton of seniors out there that don't know anything about what we do and they want to know. And I've talked before, there's a concerted effort by debt management companies, creditors, credit card companies, even people who give advice to not tell seniors about their protected income. They don't want to. If they told you that, you would realize that didn't have to pay the debt. You could use it for your food and your medicine. Instead, they want you to. They withhold this information. So the more we can spread the word, the better. Okay? Okay, that's trying to get Section 8 in California. Well, there's a waiting list, and you're right. Although we do have an email that tells you how to move up on the list and also how you can contact other parts of the country. There's a shorter waiting list in different parts of the country for Section 8. Yeah, Section 8 is more popular in certain parts of the country. So Sandra asks, when I called, I asked about my credit. Since I signed up for Section 8 housing, I'm concerned about it. But if I quitting debt consolidation, I cannot afford to stay in debt management program. Well, okay, for one thing is, if you enroll in HELPS after 90 days, we have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. Phil Tyrone runs that program. We pay him money every month for our clients, and you can rebuild your credit within a year and a half, 2 years. And the other thing we do, we have what's called a landlord letter we'll give to any senior that explains to a prospective landlord that the senior's income, Social Security is protected, can't be taken from them, is always be, and their pension is too, it will always be available to pay rent, even if they have negative entries on their credit. And that's helped a lot of our seniors be able to rent a place. So Grandma Jam says, and I wish I could call help just to have a reassuring ear, not about debt. To my favorite paralegals, they're so caring. If some program can call us lonely seniors every now and again to check, it would be nice. That's my dream too. Honestly, it is. When I first started helps, we started having a program where we called them. We had a name for them. We called them something about a senior that would needed a call back, and we used to put them on a program where they get a call like once a month or something like that. We don't do that anymore. It's just gotten too busy, and financially it's difficult. But we're going to do that someday. And but anytime you have a question or need a reassurance, you can call us. We'll talk to you. Our receptionists are really good. You can call. Uh, they'll put you through to someone, or you can call back and leave a message. We'll call back. It doesn't matter. But I agree. It would be nice if an organization could reach out to seniors that were having these difficulties and call them and see them, check on them, make sure they're going to be okay. Okay, because there are a few seniors that need that help. They don't have a support system. I encourage seniors to try to get a support system. You know, family, go to a church, whatever, friends, a neighbor. Try to get a support system. It's important. Okay, I keep trying to pay off most of my credit uh, cards, but they just keep going up on the amount each month, and I just could not afford the payments anymore. I finally joined Helps. It was a great decision, right? Um, Tim says, I'm getting inheritance and going to pay off my debt. Do I have to pay all the interest and fees? Well, I mean, you may not have to pay them at all. If you got an inheritance, you don't, if you're really poor or lower income and you get an inheritance, it may not be, I mean, if it's a huge amount, sure. But if it's a small amount, you might want to think twice about it. Sometimes I'll tell people, uh, if they're getting an inheritance, would your mom or dad want you to use that money to pay your debt, or would they want you to sell it away to have it available for your needs as you get older? Well, the answer is probably pretty obvious. They want you to use that. They don't necessarily want that to be able to pay some bank money. Then the money's gone forever. Do you have to pay I mean, you can negotiate with creditors if you want. We don't do that, but if you're committed to do that, you could call them on the phone or wait till they do something and just offer them a certain percentage. Okay. This person contacted us from Florida. I co-signed on a private student loan for my grandson with Sally Mae. Loan defaulted, and I'm disabled 2 years ago, and I can't afford to pay. You don't need to worry about it. A private student loan, there's a difference between a private and a public student loan. A private student loan can't take any of your income. It's just like a credit card debt. Okay? They can't garnish, they can't offset any of your Social Security. You don't need to pay it. If they sued you and get a judgment, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to pay it anymore. Now, with a public student loan, they can offset 15% of Social Security, but then you can qualify for an income-based repayment plan and often have to pay nothing on it. But a private student loan, you don't need to worry about it. So your inheritance is not protected, uh, but a creditor would have to have a judgment against you and have to know about the inheritance, where it is. I mean, if you got the inheritance, you could put it in a place where that would be protected. You can call and talk to us if your helps client. We'll be glad to go over that with you. Um, uh, you call and talk to us about that issue. I always think it's important if you've got income, especially like that, like an IRA, a 401k, you don't use that money to pay a debt. That needs to be kept for you for when you get older. You're going to need to supplement your income. because that's your nest egg. And the same thing with inheritance. It's kind of a nest egg. And there's places you can put it to protect it. You can keep it in someone else's name. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can do to protect that inheritance. Now, if you're going to get $1,000,000 and you got $20,000 worth of debt, then obviously you can pay the debt off and it won't be a problem. But usually it's not that much. If a personal loan was taken out to pay off debt and the payment was okay at first and then went up, and I can't make the payment anymore, can they take your Social Security pay? No, absolutely not. I mean, they'd have to sue you, get a judgment, but then remember, twice the amount is protected automatically. They can't take it. You don't need to worry about paying any debt. The only time your Social Security is at risk is if you owed taxes, and then, but state taxes can't take it, and then federal taxes, they give you notice you have a chance to get on non-collectible or currently not collectible status, but the only way they can take it is, if you owe child support. But no, you don't need to worry about them taking your Social Security. So this guy made this comment on one of my videos. He says, wrong. Eric, you're wrong. There's been such a high percentage of Arkansans past year who have had their bank accounts completely garnished, wiped out, and without any type of, quote, notice, so that they couldn't even go to court to prove if they didn't owe anything, and that lawyers were not available, having too many seniors asking for help, and the seniors also had their homes that they had spent their lives paying for take from them, ending up going homeless. That's what this comment said from this guy. And so this was my reply. I said, sorry, you are wrong and didn't listen. Banks automatically protect from garnishment twice the monthly amount of federal benefits, such as Social Security deposit to a bank account from garnishment, regardless of the source of funds in the account at the time of garnishment. Automatically! Exclamation point. The rule has been in effect since 2012. The department of the bank that deals with garnishment understands the rule. Bank managers often don't because they don't deal with this. And I would guess 999 out of 1,000 attorneys don't know the rules. If you have a bank account into which federal benefits are not deposited, then that account is at risk of garnishment. In regards to seniors, so he was dead wrong on that. I mean, so anyway, in regards to seniors losing their home, a home could be foreclosed if you don't pay a mortgage. However, it is not the practice of consumer judgment creditors like credit card judgment holders to go after a person's home, even if there's equity over the state homesteads. They don't do this for a variety of reasons. And I cited Eric Olsen, attorney for 46 years, the guy on the video. So I didn't want that comment to stand because it was wrong. Okay? Joanna says, I have one payment left and fees left to pay a debt consolidation company, a total about $600. However, I lost my job. Would you suggest I pay it to avoid the hassle of dealing with the creditor myself? I don't know what to tell you. It's up to you. I mean, if you have other debt, I mean, you don't need to pay it. I mean, if your income is protected, Social Security, I mean, if you're a helps client, obviously you don't need to pay. You call us, and we'd add it to the list. Now, if you have a bunch of other debt, Joanne, you can enroll in helps and give us that other debt, and we'll send a letter to those creditors plus this one too, so they leave you alone. But if this is the only debt on earth that you have, and nothing else, then maybe you'll want to pay it. Get it out of your hair. but it's a pretty small amount. If you don't pay it, is anything bad going to happen? Probably not. So this person, this is another question. This uh, this is another comment someone said to one of my videos. They said, "Well, if you have equity in the home, the creditors can place a lien against your home, and it will have to be paid when the house is sold." And that's my answer. I said it depends on a number of factors, including the laws in the state where you live. Some states protect a home from a judgment liens. Other states have a state proceedings to have a judgment lien removed. Depends on how much equity you have in the home. So it's just not a flat out statement. Ray says, my wife and I have hospital bills that can't pay at this time, only Social Security. I try not to worry. You don't need to worry, Ray. You don't need to worry. We just got a couple more minutes. I don't know what's going on with my life, but it seems like this hour goes by so fast. Boom, it's gone. This is a good one to end with. It says, I'm retired, 72 years old, and I got a letter from the IRS that I need to pay $3,300 I owe, or they would garnish my wages. Well, for one thing, if you only owe $3,300 and you have plenty of wages, you can pay that over 5 or 6 years. Now, if your wages are really small, you can get on currently not collectible status. It doesn't matter. Yeah, okay, I've got time to answer this one too. The person says, do the protections you talk about include credit unions? And the answer is yeah. Yeah, your money's protected in a credit union as well. So, so this person writes in, they're from Florida. And this will be my last one. I have a question. I am disabled and my house is paid off and I live in Florida. Is there any way to stop paying property taxes that keep going up? I'm afraid if I'm going to lose my home because of the property taxes and being harassed by code enforcement. Well, I can't help you on code enforcement, but Florida does have a program for property taxes for lower income seniors to be deferred. Okay? You can, in fact, wherever you live, if you have a problem with property taxes, you can Google property tax deferral for seniors in your state or the county in your state. And there's a good chance there might be a program available for you to either defer or lower the property taxes. Okay? So an hour has gone by. I want to thank you for participating. Please press the like button. If you got any questions, you can call us toll free 855-435-7787. 855 helps US or helps us. I don't want you to worry. Call us anytime. We got people standing by to answer your calls, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow, same time. Okay? God bless. Have a great day. Bye.